Happier Than Ever was released by singer-songwriter Billie Eilish on the 30th of July 2021. It marks Billie's second studio album after her popular debut LP, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? Happier Than Ever is a deeply personal album for Billie and goes into the thoughts she was battling as her fame increased and as she grew older and faced the pressures from the outside world. In interviews covering this album, she talks about how the creation of it was easy and that she wasn't fighting with herself whilst making it, instead just letting her thoughts and feelings write the songs themselves, without giving much scrutiny towards it. The album has 16 tracks and collects for a total runtime of just under an hour, giving Billie plenty of music for us to cover, break down, and understand. With that being said, I'm Tristan, and this is Billie Eilish's Happier Than Ever. At 4 minutes and 4 seconds, Getting Older is the kind of opening track that doesn't just set a tone, it hands you a lens to see the whole album through. From the very first lines, Billie speaks with a mixture of honesty and weariness, opening up about the challenges and changes she's faced while transitioning from a teenager who broke into a global fame to an adult, navigating the weight that comes with it. It's reflective, but not bitter, as if she's talking to herself just as much as she's talking to us. In the lines shown, Billie captures the double-edged sword of success. There's pride in surviving the journey, but also a tinge of loneliness. Fame has given her opportunities most people could only dream of, but it's also left her isolated, often without the support system she might have expected. That contradiction runs deep throughout the song. Moments of growth that are then shadowed by the sacrifices that came with it. This line gives us a glimpse into the mental toll her life has taken. The knowledge she's gained about the people, the world, and herself isn't always empowering. Some of it feels like a burden, the kinds of truth you can't unlearn once you've seen them. The mention of her happiness being an endeavour of hers also points to the ongoing challenges she faces with mental health, something she's been consistently open about in her music and interviews. In the second half of the song, Billie switches from talking about her own struggles to acknowledging how she's learned to protect herself. She's referencing how she's become more cautious about who she trusts and how she stopped forcing herself into situations or relationships that make her uncomfortable. It's a sign of maturity, but it comes with a cost. The production mirrors this balance perfectly. The soft, minimalistic instrumentation keeps a spotlight on her words, while the subtle shifts in the arrangement keep the track from feeling static. There's no big chorus or explosive moment, because there doesn't need to be. The weight is in what she's saying. As an opener, Getting Older is both an introduction and a warning. It tells us that Happier Than Ever isn't going to be a glossy, surface-level pop album. It's going to dig into the uncomfortable truths, personal reflections, and the often messy reality of growing up in front of the world. Clocking in at 2 minutes and 38 seconds, I Didn't Change My Number is a sharp, sly follow-up to the introspection of Getting Older. Where the opener was soft and reflective, this track feels like a smirk, a concise but loaded message to someone who's lost their access to her, whether that's an ex, a former friend, or simply someone who's crossed a line. It's not about hiding or running away, it's about control and boundaries. The first line sets the tone for the entire song. Billie isn't severing herself from the world, she's choosing who gets her time and energy. In an age where instant communication is taken for granted, this is her way of saying, I decide who gets through to me now. It's a quiet form of power, one that doesn't require dramatic confrontation to be effective. In these following lyrics, she makes it clear that whatever issues the other person is facing are no longer hers to fix. The empathy has run out, and instead of being pulled back into their drama, she's letting them know that she's moved on emotionally. It's both a refusal to re-engage and a subtle declaration of her own well-being, and that it comes first and is her priority. The middle section of the song takes a slightly more playful and sarcastic tone, with Billie almost taunting the subject. She sows in little jabs, not out of cruelty, but to emphasize how little their actions or presence mean to her now. In a way, it's a healthier form of closure, not bitter but firm. Production-wise, the track's quirky synth flourishes, and the rhythm perfectly reflects its bite. The music feels jumpy and unpredictable, almost like the way conversations with toxic people tend to go. Quick jabs, awkward pauses, and moments where you can't quite tell if it's meant to be serious or mocking. Being placed directly after the vulnerability of getting older, this song sharpens the album's tone. It's a quick, self-assured statement that reclaims emotional space without resorting to confrontation. Rather than Billie making this song feel like a defensive track, it plays as a confident boundary marker, the kind that lets you move forward without carrying someone else's weight. At 3 minutes and 30 seconds, My Future is one of the most uplifting and self-assured moments on the album. It's also one of the earliest songs from the project that fans heard, releasing as a single almost a year before Happier Than Ever came out. It stands out in Billie's discography for its optimism. Not with optimism about somebody else, but about herself and who she's becoming. In one simple line, Billie reframes love in a way that's rarely seen in mainstream pop. She personifies her future self as somebody she's eager to know, somebody worth anticipating. It's a sentiment that challenges the cultural pressures to place romantic relationships at the center of self-worth. Here, the romance is with growth itself. This continuation builds on the first line's independence. There's a quiet but powerful statement here, that self-discovery isn't a side project, it's the main focus. In the context of Billie's rapid rise to fame, it's not hard to imagine why she'd feel the need to slow down and look inwards, rather than constantly adapting to the demands of the outside world. The song's structure reflects this journey. The first half is slow, airy, and almost dreamlike, like somebody sitting in thought on a rainy afternoon. Then halfway through, it blooms into a warmer, more upbeat groove. That shift mirrors the emotional movement from contemplation to confidence, a subtle but deliberate production choice that makes the message land even harder. Lyrically, My Future is also about boundaries, but in a softer, more hopeful sense than I Didn't Change My Number. Instead of shutting somebody out, she's pulling herself in, choosing to invest her time and energy into her own development. In doing so, she sets an example that self-prioritization isn't selfish, it's necessary. This track's placement in the album is clever. After the moodier and more guarded opening songs, it offers a breath of fresh air. It's a reminder that this project isn't just about pain, pressure, and reflection, it's also about hope and forward momentum. My Future doesn't deny the struggles Billie has faced. If anything, it makes them more meaningful by showing how they've shaped her outlook. Ending on such an open, hopeful note, the song acts almost like a reset button for the listener. It's a moment that invites reflection, not on past pain, but on the possibility of who you could become, if only you treated yourself as worth getting to know. At 3 minutes and 30 seconds, Oxytocin is one of the most intense and provocative moments on Happier Than Ever. The title references the love hormone, which plays a role in intimacy, attachment, and emotional bonding. But Billie's take on it is far from soft or sentimental. Instead, the track is a pulsing, feverish exploration of desire and danger, framed through a lens of temptation and rebellion. This opening challenge immediately sets a tone. It's playful on the surface, but also a jab at moral and societal expectations. It suggests an attraction to somebody whose values or public image might not align with their private desires, and Billie wastes no time in pushing them to confront that hypocrisy. Here, she flips the dynamic. Instead of painting herself as the one being chased, she becomes the warning. That dangerous pull that the other person can't resist, but they probably should. It's a line that blends seduction with threat, a reminder that passion can be just as destructive as it is thrilling. The production on this song is relentless. The pounding percussion, layered vocals, and an undercurrent of distortion that never fully resolves, it doesn't really give the listener space to relax, reflecting the almost primal rush that the song's subject evokes. It's not romance here, it's chemical reaction, an adrenaline-fueled rush where logic takes a backseat. What makes Oxytocin particularly effective in this album's flow is its contrast with the surrounding tracks. Coming after the dreamy self-love in My Future, it's a sharp left turn into a darker territory, almost like an impulsive decision that follows a period of introspection. This shows another side to Billie, one that's bold, unfiltered, and willing to play with risk. There's also a thematic thread here about control. While the song's intensity could suggest recklessness, Billie is the one steering the narrative. She's the one settling the terms, issuing the invitations and warnings, and deciding how far things go. In that way, it mirrors tracks like I Didn't Change My Number, where the real power lies in her ability to choose. Rather than the song resolving into something calm, the track leaves the adrenaline running. It captures a moment of risk and temptation in its purest form, holding the listener there long enough to feel both the thrill and the danger it carries. At 2 minutes and 31 seconds, GOLDWING is one of the shortest tracks on the album, yet it manages to feel like two songs in one. It begins with an almost sacred introduction before transforming into something sharper, more grounded. This split mirrors the song's message, which is more of a message on innocence and purity and the forces that threaten to corrupt them. The opening line, sung in a layered arrangement, draws directly from a Christian hymn. It's pure, weightless, and otherworldly, setting a mood that feels untouched by the chaos of fame and adulthood. The harmonies float above a minimal backing, pulling the listener into a space that feels safe and sheltered. But this purity doesn't last. Just as you're settling into the serenity, the beat drops and Billie's tone shifts. The softness is replaced by something more pointed, more knowing. In these lines, there's a metaphor of a gold-winged angel, and that paints the subject as rare and precious, perhaps a younger person or even Billie's younger self, who is stepping into a world that doesn't have their best interests at heart. The warning is clear in the line, "You better keep your head down." Here, Billie acknowledges the predatory nature of industries like music and entertainment. There's a sense of protectiveness, but also resignation, and understanding that the only way to stay safe might be to hide parts of yourself, to guard that gold before someone tries to take it away. The song's structure enhances its meaning. The heavenly first half represents an untouched state of innocence, while the second half's driving beat and clipped vocal delivery symbolize reality closing in. It's almost like watching a time lapse of someone going from carefree to guarded in a matter of seconds. Whilst GOLDWING is brief, it lingers. It acts as a thematic pivot point in the album. Up to now, the songs have largely been about Billie's own relationships and boundaries. Here, she looks outward, offering advice or perhaps a warning to others who might be where she once was. It's a rare moment of her speaking not just from her own experience, but directly to the next angel, about stepping into the glare of the spotlight. Its brevity is part of its impact. The transition from innocence to guardedness happens so quickly that it feels almost jarring, echoing how fast the real world can strip away the safety of youth. That snap is what stays with you. Running at 3 minutes and 32 seconds, Lost Cause stands as one of the most direct and unapologetic moments on the album. The track strips away sentimentality and leaves us with Billie confronting someone, likely that person being an ex, whose potential she once believed in, but now she sees for what they really are. It's not bitter so much as it is clear-eyed, and that clarity is where the power in the song lies. Right from the start, there's no room for ambiguity. Billie isn't hinting at her disappointment, she's spelling it out. The relationship or connection they once had has changed beyond recognition, and her delivery makes it sound like she's already past the point of being hurt by it. This is no longer about heartbreak, it's about recognizing the truth and moving on. The past tense used here is important. There was a time when she saw something in this person, when she imagined a future together. But distance and hindsight have stripped away all the illusions. The way she frames it makes the realization feel inevitable, like she's finally seeing them without the rose-tinted glasses. Throughout the verses, Billie throws in specific criticisms that are both personal and universal. Qualities that might resonate with anyone who's dealt with someone who refuses to grow up and take responsibility. These aren't vague jabs. They're targeted observations that add up to the song's sting without tipping into cruelty. The production in the song is intentionally minimal, giving the lyrics room to breathe. A steady, unhurried beat sits under a bass line that feels almost lazy, a perfect musical parallel to the subject's lack of desire or ambition. The restrained arrangement also keeps the song from becoming overly aggressive. It's a confident dismissal rather than an angry rant. What makes Lost Cause resonate is its tone. It's not a sad song, and it's not a triumphant one either. It's somewhere in between. The calm after the storm, you may say, when you've stopped arguing with reality and just accept what's in front of you. Billie doesn't need to raise her voice or pack the song with drama. The detachment is what makes the message land. It closes not with drama, but with quiet certainty. The detachment in her tone makes the message land harder, as if the real victory isn't in winning the argument, but in realizing that it's no longer worth having. At 3 minutes and 54 seconds, Halley's Comet is one of the most tender and vulnerable moments on Happier Than Ever. The song slows the pace of the album, trading sharpness and confidence for a dreamy ballad that feels almost weightless. The title itself is a metaphor rich with meaning. Halley's Comet famously appears only once every 75 to 79 years, and Billie uses it to symbolize rarity, distance, and the fleeting nature of certain emotions. In these two lines, she captures the inner conflict of attraction when you know it's not in your best interest. It's a theme that runs quietly throughout the album, the push and pull between desire and self-protection. This isn't unrequited love in the traditional sense, it's love she's intentionally holding at an arm's length. This line is deceptively simple, but its meaning cuts deep. Billie compares her own emotional presence, particularly in matters of love, to something astronomically rare. It's a self-aware admission that she doesn't let herself fully show up often. Whether due to guardedness, fear, or circumstance, there's a loneliness in the comparison, but also honesty. The delivery of each line is soft and almost hesitant, mirroring the uncertainty of the emotions she's describing. The instrumentation, sparse piano, airy synths, and delicate background textures reinforce the feeling of floating through a thought rather than arriving to a conclusion. It's not about a big declaration, it's about lingering in the in-between. Midway through the song, there's a subtle shift in tone as well. Whilst it remains gentle, a hint of warmth creeps in, like a quiet acceptance of her feelings. Even if she can't or won't act on them, this duality, resisting whilst also acknowledging, is what makes Halley's Comet so affecting. It's not a clean, resolved emotion, it's the kind that sits with you, uncomfortably but honestly. Placed after Lost Cause, the song changes the emotional temperature of the album. Where Lost Cause is dismissive and clear-cut, Halley's Comet is uncertain and introspective, reminding us that letting go of someone doesn't always erase feelings for them. And that contrast between the two tracks gives the album a more human complexity, showing that confidence and vulnerability can exist side by side. When the final notes in the song fade, the feeling isn't one of resolution, but of something unfinished, like emotions that will drift in and out over time. It's a soft acknowledgement that not every feeling needs to be tied up neatly to be understood. At 3 minutes and 47 seconds, Not My Responsibility is less a song than a spoken word statement, set against an atmospheric swelling backdrop. Billie delivers it almost like a monologue, addressing one of the most persistent themes in her public life, the scrutiny over her body image and choices. This question sits at the center of the piece. It's not asked softly, it's delivered as a challenge aimed squarely at those who feel entitled to comment on her worth based on her appearance alone. The tone throughout is calm but firm, almost surgical in how it dismantles the idea that her physical presentation, whether in baggy clothes, fitted outfits, or anything in between, should be subject to public approval or disapproval. In a way, it's both deeply personal and universally resonant, speaking to anybody who's ever been reduced to surface level judgment. Not My Responsibility works as a turning point. Up until now, the album has explored Billie's personal boundaries and inner world. This track widens the lens, pointing out the cultural forces that shape and often distort the way she's seen. It's not the emotional heart of the record, but it's a moment of clarity, planting a flag in the ground and saying, I decide my own value. At the end of the song, it doesn't fade away so much as it lingers in the silence afterwards, daring the listener sit with the discomfort of its questions. Clocking it at 3 minutes and 34 seconds, OverHeated picks up directly where Not My Responsibility leaves off, turning the calm, spoken defiance of the interlude into a more rhythmic, biting commentary. Whilst the previous track laid out the problem, which was the obsession with Billie's image, OverHeated pushes back with a sharper edge, calling out those who profit from it and perpetuate it. Here, Billie flips the gaze back on her observers and the media, hinting that their fixation says more about them than it does about her. It's a subtle accusation that what they call interest or concern is really just control disguised as curiosity. The beat is steady and cool, almost detached, matching the lyrical tone. Billie isn't pleading for change here, she's exposing the absurdity of the situation and trying to move on. The way her voice sits low in the mix gives the impression that she's speaking from a place of complete composure. No overreactions, just facts. In the album's larger arc, OverHeated acts like the quick exhale after the monologue of Not My Responsibility. It takes the frustration that piece articulated and folds it into a groove, making the message as much about reclaiming energy as it is about calling people out. It doesn't explode or boil over, instead it simmers, leaving the heat under the surface where it still burns. At 3 minutes and 26 seconds, Everybody Dies is a sobering reflection on mortality that strips away any romanticism about death. Billie delivers it with a calm, almost matter-of-fact tone, making the subject feel both intimate and universal. The bluntness of this line immediately sets it apart from songs that treat death with flowery language. Billie isn't dressing it up, she's acknowledging it as an unavoidable truth. The casual rhyme makes it sound almost conversational, as if she's only talking to a friend rather than making a grand statement. Throughout the track, there's a quiet acceptance in her delivery. It's not hopeless or fearful, it's an acknowledgement of the inevitable. She touches on the fact that even knowing this, we still often live as though we're exempt, or as if the people we love will always be around. Musically, the production is sparse, allowing the lyrics to land without distraction. The simplicity works in its favour, letting the listener sit with the thought instead of being pulled along by heavy instrumentation. Placed here in the album, Everybody Dies feels like a pause, a moment to zoom out from the personal dramas and industry commentary, and remember that at the end of it all, the clock is ticking for everybody. It's grounding, if slightly unsettling. At 4 minutes and 5 seconds, Your Power stands out as one of the most emotionally charged and thematically important tracks on Happier Than Ever. Stripped back to an acoustic guitar and Billie's voice, the song is both intimate and devastating, addressing abuse of power in relationships, particularly where there's an age and authority imbalance. Right from the opening line, Billie paints a picture of manipulation disguised as care. The word hero is loaded here. It implies trust, admiration, even safety, but it's immediately undercut by the playing the part line, signaling that the trust was just an act, a performance designed to gain control. This refrain threads throughout the song like a plea and a warning, but it's delivered softly, almost resigned rather than with anger. That choice in tone makes it more haunting. It's not a demand screamed in confrontation, it's a quiet observation made after the damage is done. A voice that knows the words might not change the behaviour, but needs to speak them anyway. The verses move through specifics. A young girl manipulated by somebody older, somebody who should have known better. The song never names the person, which keeps it both personal and universal. This could be one story, or it could be hundreds. One of the most cutting moments comes with the following line. This is Billie turning the focus back on the abuser, highlighting the paradox that power can be intoxicating but also isolating. The way she delivers it feels almost like she's studying them from a distance, trying to understand why'd they do what they did, even though the answers won't make it right. The choice to keep the instrumentation minimal is deliberate. There's no beat drop, no production flourish to make the song more palpable. It's raw and unembellished, forcing the listener to sit with the discomfort of the lyrics. The guitar's simplicity makes Billie's voice the entire focal point, and in turn, it makes her words hit harder. In the context of the album, Your Power works as both a personal confession and a societal statement. Billie's talked in interviews about her desire for the song to resonate beyond her own experiences, to speak to a broader culture where exploitation often hides in plain sight. Here she takes that hidden truth and puts it into a form that can't be ignored. Quiet but undeniable. It's a track that leaves you still, not because it's soothing, but because it forces you to absorb what's been said. And once you do, the weight of its message stays for you long after the final chord fades. At 3 minutes and 15 seconds, NDA is one of the most claustrophobic and uneasy moments on Happier Than Ever. Blending confrontational lyrics with a tense, eerie production, it's a track that pulls you into the reality of Billie's life, one where fame has stripped away privacy and turned everyday experiences into security risks. This opening line is both surreal and completely believable. An NDA, or in other words a non-disclosure agreement, is something you'd expect in business or high-profile negotiations, not casual dating. But for Billie, this is the level of precaution her life demands. It's not about being dramatic, it's about protecting herself from the inevitable gossip and leaks that will come with trusting the wrong person. This line captures the suffocating side of fame. It's not just about avoiding mean comments, it's about the awareness that every move is being watched, dissected, and judged in real time. The way it's delivered is wary rather than angry, which makes it all the more striking. The production is perfectly aligned with the subject matter. There's a relentless, almost matching rhythm beneath the track, paired with warped, shifting sounds that keep you on edge. It mirrors the paranoia and constant vigilance of living in the spotlight that never turns off. As the song progresses, Billie blurs the line between personal anecdotes and broader commentary on celebrity culture. The specific late-night encounters, literal contracts of silence feel deeply personal, yet the underlying theme of losing control over your own narrative is something that applies to almost everyone in the public eye. One of the subtlest strengths of NDA is its refusal to offer a resolution. It doesn't build to a big moment or end with a hopeful twist. Instead, it traps you in the same tense space it started in, just as Billie is trapped in her own reality. Within the arc of the album, NDA sits in a string of songs that explore power dynamics and control, both in personal relationships and in the public gaze. But here, the control is defensive rather than manipulative. It's about survival, holding onto whatever sliver of privacy is still possible. Rather than fading away gently, NDA ends abruptly, almost like a door being closed. It's as if you've been allowed a brief, uncomfortable glimpse into her world, and then it's over, leaving you with an unease of what it might be like to live in it every day. At 2 minutes and 54 seconds, Therefore I Am is one of the most playful yet assertive moments on Happier Than Ever. The title borrows from philosopher Rene Descartes' famous line, "I think, therefore I am," but Billie twists it into something sharp and dismissive, using it as a weapon against those who feel entitled to her time, attention, or image. This opening line wastes no time settling the tone. Casual in delivery but laced with disdain, it's not an invitation to explain, it's a shutdown. Billie's voice is relaxed, almost amused, as if she's already decided the conversation isn't worth having. This refrain runs through the track like a mantra. It's a clear boundary, but the way it's phrased keeps it conversational rather than confrontational. The use of damn softens the formality while still driving the point home. The relationship someone thinks they have with her is purely in their head. The verses play with this same mix of sarcasm and authority. Billie teases and undercuts her target, making it clear that they're not as important as they think they are. There's a sense of her reclaiming the narrative, refusing to let other people's perceptions or claims define her. Musically, the track is minimalistic but catchy. With a rubbery bass line and clipped beats that leave plenty of space for her voice, that lack of heavy production mirrors the no-nonsense attitude of the lyrics. It's stripped down to just what's needed to deliver the message. One of the song's strongest elements is its pacing. Billie never raises her voice or pushes off a dramatic payoff. Instead, the cool, almost lazy delivery makes her dismissiveness feel even more potent. She's not fighting for power here, she already has it and she knows it. In the album's flow, Therefore I Am comes as a quick, confident burst after heavier, more intensive tracks like NDA. It's a reminder that while Billie can go deep into self-reflection and vulnerability, she can also turn around and deliver a cutting, playful jab without missing a beat. Rather than the song closing with a resolution or softening her stance, she leaves the listener exactly where she wants them, clear on her boundaries, slightly amused by her wit, and aware that she's entirely in control of the conversation. At 4 minutes and 58 seconds, the title track is the emotional centerpiece of the album, and is one of Billie's most striking songs to date. It's a mastered class in contrast, starting as a soft, almost resigned ballad before exploding into a raw, distorted rock catharsis. This shift isn't just a stylistic choice, it mirrors the emotional arc of the lyrics, moving from quiet reflection to unrestrained release. Delivered softly in the opening verse, it sounds almost like an offhand confession, the kind you might mutter to yourself rather than admit out loud. The understatement makes it sting more. She's not trying to hurt anyone, but she's stating a truth that can't be ignored. These lines add complexity. This isn't vindictive joy, there's regret in the honesty, and acknowledgement that she wishes the relationship hadn't turned into something that made her feel this way. It's a relatable mix of emotions, relief tangled with disappointment. Midway through the track, the tempo and instrumentation begin to shift. The guitar becomes more insistent, the rhythm heavier, and the lyrics take a sharper turn. Then the dam breaks. In the second half, the restraint is gone. Billie's delivery is raw, almost shouting. The mix of distorting as if the emotion is too big for the track to contain. She lists grievances with no filter. The way the other person treated her, their hypocrisy, their impact on her life. It's although all the frustration and resentment build up over the years and is finally spilling out into one unbroken stream. The production mirrors this eruption. The clean, minimal arrangement of the first half is replaced with a wall of distorted guitars, crashing drums and layered vocals. It's messy and overwhelming in the best possible way, perfectly capturing the chaos of letting go and saying everything that you've been holding back. The emotional weight of Happier Than Ever lies in its duality. The first half is what you can say when you're trying to stay composed, and the second half is what comes out when you can't hold it in any longer. That contrast makes it not just one of the most cathartic moments on the album, but in Billie's entire catalogue. Rather than tapering off, the song ends still riding that wave of anger and liberation, leaving the listener almost breathless. It's a release for her, but also for anyone who's ever wished they could just scream their truth out without restraint. At 3 minutes and 14 seconds, Male Fantasy serves as the quiet, introspective closer to Happier Than Ever. After the chaos and emotional eruption of the title track, this song feels almost like sitting alone in a dimly lit room, trying to collect yourself. It's stripped down to a gentle acoustic guitar and Billie's voice, creating an atmosphere that's deeply personal and unguarded. The bluntness of this opening line catches you off guard. It's not poetic or dressed up, it's awkwardly human. Billie has talked about how unrealistic depictions of intimacy and pornography can distort perceptions, especially when those portrayals are largely shaped by a male gaze. Here, the title Male Fantasy becomes a commentary on that. The idea that what's sold as desirable often has little to do with reality or genuine connection. This line brings us back to the personal, pulling the focus from cultural critique to raw emotion. It's not an angry declaration, it's almost a whisper, heavy with vulnerability. Even when she knows better, even when she can intellectually critique love, intimacy, and media portrayals, she can't switch off the part of herself that still aches over somebody. Throughout the verses, there's a push and pull between trying to rationalize feelings and just letting them be. She reflects on the relationship with a detached clarity at times, only to slip back into longing the next moment. This inconsistency isn't a flaw, it's what makes the song feel real. The minimal production in the song plays a huge role in its emotional impact. The absence of layered beats or heavy instrumentation forces you to focus on her words and delivery. Every breath, every slight vocal crack feels intentional, making the track sound almost like a confessional note sent late at night. As the album's closer, Male Fantasy doesn't offer a neat closure. Instead, it leaves the listener in a place of quiet contemplation, carrying both the wisdom and the wounds of the experiences she shared across the record. It's a reminder that growth is rarely linear, and even after cathartic moments like Happier Than Ever, there could still be unresolved feelings left to sit with. The final fade isn't triumphant or tragic, it's just stillness, letting the weight of everything before it settle. It's Billie's way of ending not with a final word, but with a moment of honesty that lingers long after the sound stops.